All right, it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen order and ask Selectman Muska to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, all members of the Board of Selectmen are here and present. Next up is the approval of the meeting minutes from December 19th. I'm going to ask that we postpone those until our next meeting.
Move to postpone the meeting minutes approval till next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. There are a couple of corrections that need to be inserted into it before we can vote on it. So we'll have those for the next meeting. We're on to public participation, one of two opportunities for members of the public to address the Board of Selectmen. I'll first ask if there's anybody here in the room who would like to address the board, ask you to identify yourself by your name and your address, and then I'll turn to anybody who may be with us online. Is there anybody here who would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Brockburg. I got a couple quickies here. For what it's worth, Jay, I had a story on the solar panels on Draggy Farm.
Southwood, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Horrible idea. Too many residences in the area. Those are terrible, noisy things. For what it's worth, to bring up this baloney with that open space that South Windsor's playing with, but John DeLisa's pumping out letters again saying the transfer was illegal for what it's worth. The ordinance for the Broadbrook Fire Department, I have a concern about one part of the change.
Yep.
And that is the second red section. It says all members of the town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department shall be appointed by the town's Board of Selectmen for terms of 3 years. I think the intent should have been the Board of Commissioners, not the entire fire department, because members are firefighters.
Oh, yep. Thank you for that.
It's okay. We want it to work. Thank you. I'm done.
Other public comment. Name and address, please, sir.
Nick Maxada, 24 Sullivan Farm Road, Broadbrook, Connecticut. And I'm talking about the proposed amendment changes to the ordinance regarding the town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department. As you know, I am the vice chairman of that commission. Just a quick point of order before we begin on what I have to say. The distribution list on the minutes that are posted went directly to the chiefs of the fire department, and the commission members were never included on the distribution. That seems like a little bit of oversight, seeing as governance belongs under the commission, day-to-day affairs belong to the fire chiefs. As it relates to the intent of the changes, I understand that there are some logistics challenges with the election of representatives for the commission. However, I think that it's important that we have continuity throughout the town. The Warehouse Point Fire District elects their representatives to set their tax rate, to set their finance, all that stuff. That was the purpose of setting this. To go to appointments kind of cuts the legs out from under the purpose of this ordinance, in my opinion. I think if there are other ways to do it, I would ask that the selectmen consider other ways to do that, whether it be move the election date to a time that is more suitable by ordinance and take it away from this odd date that it is, or through some other means necessary. If they do go to appointments, I do recommend that it also say in the first red section that all members of the town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department shall live within not the town's jurisdictional district, but the district's jurisdictional district. People from Warehouse Point who don't even pay the taxes should not be appointed to the Broadbrook Fire Department, Town of East Windsor Commission, or elected. Furthermore, as it relates to the existing ordinance, if we're going to be making changes to it, I have a couple of other recommendations that need consideration. First and foremost, Section 6, conduct of the fire department. It has never been the intent of our commission, nor should it be, in my opinion, the intent of that commission to serve as a supervisory body for the entire fire department. Just as if you hired a board of sanitation, hired out, waste management companies, that board wouldn't sit and say, oh, that waste management company's president needs to be fired. That's not the intent. The Broadbrook Fire Department is a corporation. It's its separate entity. It has its own board for its own governance and management of its members. I understand when this was written because I was a part of this ordinance as it was started. This is legacy language that came from a lawyer who boilerplated it from another town. That whole section to me is superfluous to what the board of directors for the corporation of the Broadbrook Fire Department already does. So it's redundant and unnecessary. The same thing goes for section 8, suspension and removal of members. The commission should have no jurisdiction to suspend or remove members when you already have a board of directors for that corporation. If the corporation is doing a poor job, then the commission could go out and get fire protection services from another corporation. That's how they do it all throughout the West anyways. I just think that those two sections, if you're going to do this, do it in one shot instead of piecemealing it. Those are legacy things that we've been dealing with on the commission that have no real practical value whatsoever and should be taken out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are other public comment.
Can we ask you questions to get answers to after?
When we come to the agenda item, yeah. Are there other comments? Asking a third time. Is there anybody online who would like to address the members of the Board of Selectmen? Okay, there will be another opportunity later in the meeting. We will move on to reappointments. We have one. Ruth Ann Lansner's term as a member of the Elderly Commission is up. She's expressed an interest in being reappointed. May I have a motion?
I'll move to reappoint Ruth Ann Lansner to the Elderly Commission as a regular member for a term expiring December 31st, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. I'm gonna ask that we postpone until our next meeting discussion on agenda item 8A.
Move that we postpone agenda item 8A until our next meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Brings us to 9A, discussion and potential vote on the amendment to the Town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department. All right, so first of all, I do have an update to this from what was sent out, and it was just a correction on one of the pieces of vocabulary in here. Hang on a second. Here's an updated version for you all. Give one a sabo, please. Oh, I think
Do you give me yours?
yep, that's what I thought. Thank you. Okay, so here is the problem and why we're discussing this now. At the time that this was adopted, everything made sense. We would have the election of the Broadbrook Fire Commissioners concurrent with the first budget referendum because their budget was also on the ballot. We did not do it at the same time as the general elections because the fire district lines are not the same as the legislative district lines are not the same as the polling place different lines. So absent, if we were to do those elections all on the same day, we would incur additional costs in terms of setting up additional ballots and in terms of having to hire additional staff. So the decision at that point in time was keep it simple, put it on its own separate ballot line where you already had the bifurcation based on who's eligible to vote for what. That worked fine, no problems. I don't believe there's actually been a contested election since then. Then came the advent of early voting. And early voting says that there needs to be a special election. When there is a special election, which the Secretary of State's office has opined that this qualifies as, it requires 4 days of early voting. We implemented that this past year and we had exactly 0 people participate, but we still had to pay for and operate 4 days of early voting, including over Mother's Day. That becomes overly burdensome on the registrars to have to staff that, and it becomes an unnecessary cost for us to have to pay that. So the solution, considering all of those things, is to turn it from an elected position to an appointed one. The comment that was made about referencing on page 2, the Board of Fire Commissioners of the Town of East Windsor Fire Department, that's a good one. Thank you for bringing that up, sir. That absolutely is what the intent was. We've also, there have been conversations with members of the Town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department's Fire Commission for several years about what the changes are to be, and we don't have anything from them. But I do have a problem now with the timing of this. And the reason is the 2 political parties are going to be notified this month, at the end of this month, that they need to submit nominations for election, which means that the town is about to incur an additional cost that we don't need to incur unless the system has changed from an elected format to an appointed format. You made some good points about things that probably should be corrected. Happy to do that, but we're not ready to do that. And I have a time-sensitive issue now. So I think that should be something that we handle through a subsequent conversation. I did meet with the fire chief this morning, and actually he came into my office. I didn't realize he was not a planned meeting. He came in and we had a conversation about it. And he was absolutely on board with what we were doing and why we were doing it, thought that it made sense. He did also reference there are some other things that needed to be corrected. And I explained that we can do that, but I have a time urgency now that's going to cost the town money if we don't act at this chunk. So that's how we got there. Now let me explain what the new change that I made, which you can almost see on the board here. Oh, it's not connected to that. My changed language just clarifies that the commissioners serve for staggered 3-year terms and that the terms line up with the classes in which they're already established. So there's not a wholesale change of the commission all at once. It is a continuous slow burn, just as it is now. So 1/3 of them are up in 25, 1/3 of them are up in 26, 1/3 of them are up in 27, which provides stability and continuity to the fire commission. And it mirrors the system that's already there in place now. When the language in the original amendment was provided, it didn't really specify that that would be the case. In fact, it was kind of confusing with how long thereafter those appointments would take place. So I clarified that just to make sure that it's understood that if you're appointed to a seat that is and filling a vacancy for one that is to expire on June 30th of 25, your term is still up on June 30th of 25. You don't get additional time beyond that, so that staggered approach remains in place. That's the only change in this document versus what was in the packet. So I'm going to start with Sarah, and I'm going to go with Marie.
So how would it work if there was a member of the Board of Selectmen that did not live within this district and they lived with Warehouse Point? They would still be able to appoint someone to the Broadbrook?
Yeah.
Or they would?
Yep. But to address the question about the living within the jurisdiction of the fire department, that is actually addressed in section 2, not in section 5. And section 2 describes the territorial jurisdiction and says that the powers and duties of the fire department shall extend to all portions of the town that are not included within the limits of any other fire district. So if this ordinance covers all of East Windsor unless you're covered by Warehouse Point, and then it does not apply. So they need to live within the territorial jurisdiction. That means in any part of East Windsor unless it's covered by Warehouse Point. So that concern, I think, is already addressed definitionally. Hold on a second. I'm going to suspend the rules here and get to you guys, but I'm going to let Sarah finish first.
Was my own question. I'm just a little concerned by it being, language to appoint someone and taking away the option for the district to be able to vote someone in. I understand have additional costs with the early voting and
Not
some
just cost, it's the time too.
yeah, and
Staff
some
time.
loopholes, but I I'm leaning towards not supporting this because I don't believe it should be an appointment, especially if someone up here is not living within the district of Broadbrook. Because in order to serve on there, you have to be, live within that area, but I don't think someone else should be appointing them if they don't follow the same rules.
Yeah, on section 2.
Yeah.
And this line here on page 2, marked in red. I agree. This is confusing language to me, looking at it real quick. I understand it, reading it the third time. I think we should make it simple and just say you have to be part of the Broadbrook Fire Department servicing area. Word it however you want. Take Warehouse Point out of it in that jurisdiction and any other jurisdiction in the MH surface that you have to be in Broadbrook Fire Department's servicing district, under whatever that group of names are and streets are. I think appointment, I agree with it, appointment and not going to 4 in the 5 days. I think having it appointed, but I don't know if there should be some language in there say that it's got to be appointed through a vote through the fire commission. I don't think it should be up to the chief or Nick to say, okay, I want this one, and this one. I think it has to be up to the board of commissioners to decide who they are going to appoint based upon those that want to step forward. And if they want to have a vote within their firehouse, then that should be left up to them and take us out of that. So this way we don't have to be saddled with that additional expense with the change in the law. The other thing I have, and I'm not sure what section, section 6, the conduct of the fire district. I'm not sure what he was alluding to, if they have bylaws that spell out that. So maybe the best way is whatever document he's referring to, it's put in here, the conduct of the fire department is based upon whatever that policy is.
Can I just answer that? It's a real quick one. If you look at section 4, the town of East Windsor shall enter into fire services and mutual aid agreements with the Broadbrook Fire Department Incorporated. Okay, so
Okay,
much like the town,
Page 4, one page back.
Section 4.
so much like the town
Town shall-
currently has a contract for waste management,
Yeah,
right? And in the conduct of waste management, you're dealing with the corporation. That's an entity. There is no, if one of the waste management personnel is doing something wrong, you call the waste management people and they take care of their person. There's no commission that says, oh, we have to punitively punish that employee of that corporation. So it's redundant to have conduct of the fire department managed specifically with a whole set of rules and everything else. The corporation, Broadbrook Fire Department itself has its own rules of conduct, has its own board of directors. It is a corporation that we enter into agreement for services with. So this is a redundant section.
yeah, but you're,
Good.
but they're also a town entity, they're not a separate entity.
They're a town department.
So because it,
That's not accurate. The Broadbrook Fire Department is a corporation registered with the Secretary of State. It is a
Broadbrook Fire Department, Inc. is a
Correct.
corporation.
right,
The town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department is the town's fire department established by statute.
the town of East Windsor Broadbrook Fire Department is established by this ordinance.
Yes,
yes,
but it's
The only thing that is-
ordinance references the statute 7301.
Right, that's the commission. And then we enter into services with a corporation. Just like I said, if you enter into services with Xerox to come take care of your printers and you have a problem with one of the employees, you guys don't talk about it as a town employee. It's a corporation employee. We have, the corporation has its own policies and procedures for handling discipline. There's no need for that section.
Okay.
I think we need to reword the section.
So again,
We need to cover ourselves.
we haven't had these conversations with, and then to my knowledge, the commission hasn't had these
The
conversations.
commission has had this conversation.
And where's the red line, man?
2 years ago, we sent it up.
No,
No,
True. Yeah. When it first, the very first meeting, this was like the whole meeting was spent looking at this ordinance saying, hey, we got to get this. And our commission chairman said he was bringing it up. So
maybe we should reach out to the commission chairman and get. the
I would be more than
information.
happy to look at those.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would. But my urgency is I don't want to incur $10,000 worth of election costs.
well, and I would recommend that the burden of cost go to the fire department as a line item. And let the fire department burden the cost. And then if it's a staffing issue, you can change the date of the staffing issue by ordinance, move it away from Mother's Day, move it 2 weeks further.
You can't,
Then-
let's go by state statute.
But you can change it to make appointments? I mean, what are we talking about? If you can change it by ordinance and have a town meeting where you change the date of that election and extend it 2 weeks, you get rid of Mother's Day.
Except we don't know that there's going to be an election 2 weeks from then. The charter requires that we have an election on the date that's in there. And that's for the budget. We're not guaranteed that there will be a second vote. And then that still incurs the same costs and the same need for staff time.
You lost me.
This lines up with referendum number 1 for the budget. We know that date is the second Tuesday in May. It has to be. What we don't know is that 2 weeks after that, there will be a second budget referendum, because if the budget passes on the first time, there is no need for the second referendum.
Okay, so our
So therein, we're still incurring,
election, you have to have town budget referendum anyways, the first one. All
yes, we have to,
right.
on that date.
So why don't we do the election on that date? Because you
We
have to
do.
it anyways.
That's what we're
We do.
doing.
That's what we do now. And that's what the interpretation from the Secretary of the State is that a referendum does not trigger early voting.
Oh, just the.
Just the special election piece of it, which is probably a backwards interpretation, but they make the rules. So that is what the problem becomes, is because this constitutes a special election that triggers the 4 days. Absent that, for any other referendum, there are not days of early voting. So, but for the Broadbrook Fire Department's election on that date, we would not have to have early voting relative to the referendum.
Cost of having a representative form of government. What it is.
I would say it's a waste of taxpayers' dollars, in my opinion.
And you can't get people to work on Mother's Day. Oh, actually, Denise, you're with us. Are there any points from an electoral standpoint that I'm missing? Maybe she's not really with us.
Or is Alan gonna go next, or am I gonna go next?
We'll work our way down.
Yeah, so my one concern, I mean, all this is,
There we go.
it needs to be taken care of, but my one concern is having the department commissioners appointed by the Board of Selectmen. I think that opens the department up to political shenanigans from whatever board might come up in the future. And being the liaison to that, to their commission meeting, it's obvious that the people that are on there have very specific knowledge. They come from the fire department and they deal only with fire department related stuff. And to throw somebody in there on a political basis or whatever, I think could be really disruptive. So I don't think that's a good way to go.
What if we were to ask for recommendations from the corporation for more names than there are seats, and we picked from their recommendations, like some states fill US Senate vacancies. So the corporation provides us a list of 3 names and the board picks one of those 3. That way, they're always represented in the district. And it is still through the appointment process, but it's in consultation with the corporation.
Yeah, I think that addresses my concern. I think that the membership should come from inside the department and the department should have some say. I mean, certainly the public votes, but the public votes on the whole thing. We vote on the budget, we voted on this ordinance, so.
Public also votes on the appointing authority.
Right. Sure, but I think there needs to be, I think it should just be, a little bit of safety from being staffed with, people that don't have any experience or, context or history with the fire department. So I like that idea. I think that's a possibility to fix that.
I'm sorry, Denise, are you with us now?
I am. I was not thinking I was going to have to speak, so I was trying to unmute. Sorry.
Sorry
What
about
was the
that.
question?
Can you explain the problems around or is there anything that I missed around the problems with the early vote for, the May referendum pertaining to the special election for the fire commission?
From a registrar's point of view, it really is the staffing issue, which, and we had not one person come out and vote. But I don't know what's going to change with the Secretary of State as far as early voting. I know they're going to be making changes to it. I think we don't want to jeopardize another no people involved, but a lot of staffing kind of election for a fire commissioner or fire commissioners in this case. It just seems like a waste of money. And even if you put it in the Broadbrook Corporation's responsibility to staff it or pay for it or whatever, it's still taxpayers' money, and it's a waste of money. Are you all still there?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Keith.
So the good news is that if the Board of Selectmen passes the votes on this tonight, it's still gonna go out to the public for vote as an ordinance. So the public still gets to decide this. And, I agree with Sarah. I mean, this takes away a vote from every voter that lives in Broadbrook, every voter that lives in Melrose, every voter that lives in Scantic. It takes away thousands of votes from the town. And so we're moving in a direction that we're actually taking the voters' rights away and we're putting them into the Board of Selectmen. And you can't have a vote of the Board of Selectmen where the person who doesn't reside in the jurisdiction doesn't vote. That's not permitted. So every member on the Board of Selectmen will get to decide, even if they're perhaps conflicted out or they have no interest in it. The other problem is that it's kind of ironic. The early voting was intended to enhance public participation in voting. It's supposed to, whether or not people are yet taking advantage of it or not, to me is irrelevant. It's a law that says that we do early voting for votes to give people the right to vote. And we have to absorb the cost of that. That's inherent in the law that made it possible that people would be able to vote and participate at a higher level. And so the irony is that the town of East Windsor, one of the first times that we're confronted with the cost, okay, dealing with this, we decide that we're going to take away people's votes. I just don't even understand it. So again, so the law that's intended to, and if towns do this, honestly, if other towns do this, if we do this again, if towns decide to take away the right of people to vote, to save money at early voting, what a response that is to a law that was established to allow for an enhancement of voting. So to me, it's completely undemocratic. It violates the spirit of the state law that allows for early voting, and it takes away thousands of votes. I don't even know why we would even be talking about this tonight, because we shouldn't be. And you know, I don't want to get into budget. $10,000 is a lot of money, yes, but this town spends. I've seen this board spend $1 million a night, repeatedly in my term here, for money that wasn't even in the budget. So now we're worried about $10,000 for voting. It sounds like the commission.
Staffing.
Yeah, we paid those people to staff because that's part of the constitutional process that the state of Connecticut has established to give people the right to vote.
I think if you listen to what I said.
I did.
same as what happens on the other side of town. They have their election process
Right.
within the department. People come out, they choose, and they vote, and those candidates get in. That's why I said that we should put in there that they do it, it's similar way, that it's not just the commission making the decision, they can do the same thing. They can have their members vote for who they want and the thing. But it takes it away from a special election through the state, because I don't think that law was interpreted for what we're dealing with here.
So Maria, I agree with so that's sort of an intermediate option. I agree with that. In a sense, the proposal sounds like it might be okay. We'll leave it to the members of the department to vote for the people that are going to run them. And I think on one hand, you could say the members of the department would know best as to who is most effective. But on the other hand, it takes away votes of the people that live in the areas that are paying the taxes, that want to have some governance in this body. The voters should decide who's going to be on the board. And hopefully it's never contested and everyone cooperates and everyone is confident. But there may be times that there be a contested election because somebody feels differently about how the Broadbrook Fire Department should be run. Hasn't happened, but it might happen. And they should be able to run for election, just like any candidate can run for election. This is a multi-million-dollar corporation, business that is providing fire services. It's our public safety. It's one of the most important departments we have in our community. And so I just think it's undemocratic. Honestly, I just don't think we should be talking about not doing saving money from not doing early voting by taking away people's rights to votes. That's so runs against what's intended. I'm going to vote against it. I'm a flat no on this one. This isn't even a close call.
We don't elect planning and zoning. We don't elect wetlands.
That's charter. That's our charter. Our town voted on a charter years ago. That's a charter. And we do elect positions. They're designated in the charter. If we want to revise our charter, let's do it. If we want to go that far. But this ordinance, again, you mentioned the charter positions. Other towns do elect planning and zoning. They do. Our town doesn't. For whatever reason, when they built the charter, they decided planning and zoning would be an appointed position. We appoint a lot of people. I'm not criticizing the Board of Selectmen or saying that we can't appoint people. And yes, sometimes there's politics involved. Everyone can get past that. I mean, that's what the boards do. We vote ultimately. But the voters didn't vote for us to take away their votes, their right to vote. I don't think the voters intended that we as Board of Selectmen would take away people's rights to vote. That's really like, hey, we trust you to take away our right to vote. I don't think anyone would say they voted for us to do that. That's not even part of our charter responsibilities. It doesn't say in the charter, the Board of Selectmen gets to determine whether or not people get the right to vote. This ordinance was passed by the voters of the town. They set it up this way. I think you're going to end up opening up a can of worms, notwithstanding what Nick said earlier about other updates that need to be made. I think we're going to get into a debate about the ordinance, about the tax district, about who's funding this, about whether or not we should have a tax servicing district, whether or not this was the right way to do this in the first place, whether or not voters from the town had a right to pass an ordinance that effectively allows the town to levy. I mean, it's going to open up a whole can of worms. Why do we want to do that to the Broadbrook Fire Department or to our voters? I don't want to do that. I think we should vote it down. Let them go back, and if they have a better proposal and everyone's in an agreement with it, then we'll put it out to the voters.
Well, I would just tag on to your comments there. This will be voted on by the voters. Whatever goes in here will be voted on by the town at town meeting, right?
At the entire town would get to decide whether or not just Broadbrook, Melrose and Scantic, the entire town would decide, including people in Wales Point. What right do they have to decide if the voters lose their ability to vote for the Broadbrook Fire Department fire commissioner?
But to your point, whatever gets put in here, if it gets voted like it did in a couple of years ago, then the whole town voted.
That's
Right? We didn't take anybody's vote away.
I don't
Just deciding how to manage it in the future. I mean, I just don't want to be hyperbolic about it, right?
Listen, Alan, I agree with you. Again, it's going to open up a can of worms whether that was proper. And we have a funding mechanism right now for Broadbrook Fire Department, and they're operating and they're doing their job. and we have a board of fire commissioners that is doing its job. And they're elected by the voters, which is doing their job. So everything is working, but we're going to try to avoid early voting. That's my point. To save $10,000 or take away
And
people's votes.
staff time, key.
Yes,
Don't forget staff.
we
Cannot get staff to do it.
we pay people to do jobs. We pay staff to do jobs.
It's not our staff. These are the election staff. It's not like I can order town employees to come in on Mother's Day. These are not the same people.
Then we have to go out further and cast a wider net. What are we supposed to do? Take away early voting because we say we can't get staffing?
No, we're not canceling early voting. We're foregoing
Canceling the
it.
vote. We're canceling the vote. We're going to cancel the vote. We're going to take away people's rights to vote. How is that democratic? Honestly, I'm not trying to be such a nuisance here. I'm just really can't understand why this board would even think about taking away people's right to vote. At all, ever. For anything. It wouldn't be at the top of my list.
What are you doing on Mother's Day?
That was my question.
Oh,
Denise, we're more than happy to have you work
Is there a
those hours.
conflict of interest if the fire department provides volunteers to staff?
Got to be trained.
Fair enough. I'm saying if the fire department could find people to volunteer for that day on Mother's Day, how long's the training?
Denise?
Not long. It's not long.
So how many volunteers would you need? 3?
Both sides of town, probably eight to 10.
It is both sides of town. It's not all of the voters on both sides of town because of the jurisdictional.
Yeah, the one-
This is part of the problem.
If it was a
Is
clean,
there a way to change the ordinance such that the election of the commission is done in a different manner? That's all I'm saying. Have it done, think about the way that they're elected,
Well, the way I have it drafted now would be done in a different manner.
not by appointment. I'm saying election done in a different manner. I can't see what.
yeah, Denise, why can't the town have an election in one polling location that draws people from the different areas in the jurisdiction for a special?
Actually, I did misspeak. For early voting, we only have one designated area. So it's one side of town. We've done it all early voting has been done at the annex. But it was still, I know that we had like 8 people for that time. Now, since then, we have sort of figured out a better way, and I don't think it would take as many people. But maybe could it be done at a town meeting instead of at an election? And then all the people would have a chance to vote on it. Anybody that wanted to come to a town meeting.
But this is only for Broadbrook.
It would have to be the district.
So the Warehouse Point Fire Commission does it that way. They have a commission meeting. The commissioners run, they're voted that way. I mean, I'm just saying there's other options than to disenfranchise the voters.
and that's why I suggested that you mirror what's happening on the Warehouse Point side and do that within your department. For the third time, I state that. My intent is not to take anybody's right to vote. My intent is not to take anybody's right for their free speech. My intent is to try to resolve the issues that you brought up, what he said, and try to resolve a problem that the registrars are having. And quite frankly, I'd rather give Warehouse Broadbrook Library that $10,000 than just have people sit there and nobody come in to do anything. If that's going to be
That's,
pattern, but you never know. There could be 100 people going next time. You don't know.
talk to senators, some have changed on the state level. And it's a state, you know, I mean. I don't think it should be the fire department only appointed. I think taxpayers can say wholly, because if the fire department goes off in a different direction than taxpayers want,
Yep.
there needs to be recourse. And that's what the election cycle is designed to do.
I'm not disputing that with you or with Keith. I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just disputing the fact that it said that we're trying to take people's right to vote, and that wasn't anybody's intent. It was trying to solve a problem for the registrars, not to.
But Marie, to be honest, it does exactly that though. I mean, it may not have been intent to stop people from voting, but the ordinance had changed, completely takes away people's right to
Well,
vote.
that's why Jason is asking for people for their opinion. As always, there's a rough draft of what two sides have done, then it comes to this board to ask our opinion so that he can make the necessary changes, as he did as soon as it was brought to his attendant about that comment, he made a note on that. And then going down the line, asking people for their opinion. That's why we're here as a board. We should work together as a board, and I think that's what Jason is trying to do. Whether you agree with how the policy is in place for us to do that or how we were doing that, that's another story, but you can't always have our own ways. It's got to be a starting point. I certainly appreciate him taking the time to getting with the people he did, and doing what needed to be here. Because if it was left up to each one of us, we'd all have something completely different to give tonight. We would be here for months trying to decipher what's her opinion, what's your opinion. At least we got a basis to work on and try to come together as a group to do what's right for everybody involved.
Oh, that's why.
We got,
Hang on. So the upshot here is we want to maintain a voting mechanism on a different date. We want to make sure that everybody, all eligible electors of the district are able to vote, not of the town. So I can't use the annual town meeting. So I'd have to call a separate town. Denise, how do you guys determine who is an eligible voter? Is it only off the voter list? Could we bifurcate a town meeting?
Yes. We
We
would be
can.
able to figure that out. Yeah.
So
How would you want to have a town meeting with 30 or 40 people that doesn't give the voters the right to vote over an extended period of time, the right to do this? That's going backwards to town meetings and we're a town meeting form of government, but right now it says in this ordinance that every voter has a right to vote.
where does it say that?
It does. It says it's going to be voted for by the, it says Class A members and alternates must be elected on the same day as the initial fire department budget referendum.
That's something that only residents of the fire district are eligible to vote in.
I understand, but if we did it at a town meeting, they're not going to vote for these members at the referendum. They're going to vote maybe I'm misunderstanding. You're talking about like a town meeting where people assemble here and we know the board of selectmen notices town meeting and they vote.
Yeah,
So 20, 30, 40 people show up and they get to vote for the,
that's how Warehouse Point does it. This is exactly how Warehouse Point does it.
It's how a lot of districts and commissions all throughout the state of Connecticut too.
It's your responsibility to get out there and vote if you want to have a say, right?
well, right now, every voter, thousands of voters have the right to choose
And they will still have that.
a referendum.
People in this district.
I meant it's a district. It's not actually technically a district. It should be called jurisdiction because it's not a fire district.
Right. Only those people should be the ones able to vote on.
Correct, and that's what happens, that's what's happened, is they show up. Now we have a extended voted, we have the early voting, and so the problem is when they vote, because a referendum isn't at a town meeting, right? The referendum's a vote, it's for the public.
Yes,
So every voter in town gets to vote at the referendum, and every
but
voter.
they don't all get to vote on the fire commissioners, and they don't all get to vote on the fire.
No,
departments, but
every person in the jurisdiction gets to vote on Broadbrook Fire Department budget at referendum. And every person in the district gets to vote on, the jurisdiction gets to vote on the Broadbrook Fire Department commissioners
And they would still be able to do that.
at town meeting.
Sure. You'd get the same number of votes.
You get 20 votes or 30 votes rather than the referendum. How many people voted at the referendum? Denise, do you know?
About 500 vote referendum.
That's a lot of people that want to vote. They come out to vote.
But that's not the number of people who vote for the fire commissioners.
It's at the same vote though, right?
It's at the same vote, but that's not the vote totals.
Well,
There's a tremendous fall off.
I don't know why we're touching this. This is the way we're doing it. The voters get a vote. I understand, fire, I mean, no offense, but the fire department may say, let's do it at the town meeting. But town meeting should not be voting for elected officials. In my opinion, town meeting should be voting for purchasing things, other things, maybe the
Could
ordinances.
it be at their district meeting?
Probably not. Because it's gotta be,
It's a special district.
yeah.
Jason, like I said, and he brought up a good point. Right now, the entire town burdens the cost of this election. So one of the things I do recommend that the burden of the election be put into the Broadbrook Fire Department budget. Because it should
That's
be.
up to you guys.
Well, I'm just saying, as a taxpayer, I wouldn't, if I lived on Warehouse Point, why am I paying for that special vote for the Broadbrook jurisdiction?
This is ridiculous. This is really ridiculous. Why don't you just split the town in two pieces? East Windsor East, East Windsor West. This is incredible.
That's kind of what it is. That's the
Yeah,
reality.
I know it.
But to the other point, and then if it's staffing, if it's only in one location, what kind of volunteers are needed? And let's see if we can staff it.
Can't you make one fire department and have everybody increasing rules?
We cannot.
Now, the other caveat, and you can't work elections because you sit on the board here.
Yeah, and I'd volunteer for it.
Yeah, you'd have to volunteer as I volunteer.
Oh, I would volunteer, I'd volunteer for it, yeah.
You guys are gonna
Let's do it.
use time. And go on.
And any of your guys would have to volunteer, or they'd have to become a town employee, do the application.
I'm saying, whatever it takes, let us know. There's got to be a way to solve this
They're
problem,
already out.
That's true.
unless they're volunteers.
So they gotta do set some videos. They're still.
I don't know, Denise, are we solving your problem here or no? Like not.
It doesn't seem like it, but it's kind of hard to follow. You're kind of making me dizzy because you're all are going around in circles. It certainly was not the intent of any registrar to take away anybody's right to vote. That was not the intent. But I also think it was not the intent of the Secretary of State to have us sitting there for 4 days and have no people for that kind of an election. Maybe they need to clarify that, but I think a town meeting, you notice everybody that has an opportunity to vote. So you're not taking away anybody's vote that way. And not costing the amount of money that you are with an election.
So the problem is with the time and the money, no matter what, that's a special election that is incurring early voting, no matter what.
Yep.
So the problem that we've been asked to kind of look at here, we're either going to solve it or we're not going to solve it. And to maintain the special election means we're deciding not to solve the problem. Which is fine. We can do that. It's already a problem, so we can do that. Alternatively, we solve the problem, and the options that we kind of brainstormed collectively here are the appointment process, election through a town meeting, notice some other way. The ordinance as is currently written says that election happens at the date of the initial consideration of the department's budget, which is what fixes the date to the second Tuesday in May. So I'm coming back to three options. We either change that date and change the method with which they're appointed, or designated is a better word. We continue to incur the cost and the time and leave things status quo.
Jason, just to interrupt you for a second, you said it's the second Tuesday in May, correct?
Always.
Okay, well, Mother's Day is the Sunday before, so it would be 4 days of early voting starting on the 10th? Is
Yep.
that right? Okay.
And Mother's Day would be the last day of early voting.
Sunday.
Yep.
Just wanted clarification. Sorry. Thank you.
It's all subscribed by statute.
I didn't think they had it on the weekends too. I thought it was only Monday through Friday for them.
No, they had it on Halloween until 8 o'clock. You know how many voters they got that day?
Price of freedom.
Yes. We're kind of free floating here, Jim, so go right ahead.
So I think my suggestion is because it's May, I think you should go with what you have right there, but I think you do have to work on some things. And if you could model Broadbrook Fire District, kind of like we are, and I don't know if you can, we'll have to check that because it's a special district by ordinance. They could always have an annual meeting of the Broadbrook Fire Department, annual district meeting. They could do their election of commissioners at that meeting. They could also, have a budget hearing, so people could come to the firehouse and have input just on their particular budget. Do like we do. And I think that maybe will solve this issue. I think because early voting it's a cost, and I think we're talking about 10 grand, so, and I get we can't.
I'm guessing on that number,
And I get we can't get staff either, but I think we have to try and make it work. That actually should be a cost like out of Broadbrook's operating budget. But I think to try and bang this out before then, because there is a lot of stuff that kind of needs to be worked on. So if you just spend the 10 grand and find the volunteers or people to work it, and then you have a whole other year to work on these other issues that you can iron out and do it all at once rather than do it piecemeal. That's just my feelings on it. But if you could definitely get it at their district meeting, like we do, the people can go to that district meeting and it would be on an annual basis, say the May meeting or whatever it is, and have the elections there. Like, I don't know, we have to check that through, because this is an ordinance, special district by an ordinance. I don't really know the rules.
That follows suits to a lot of what a lot of districts do that are statute districts.
Right, and
That's the model.
most districts operate in that.
He's a special act district, you're a statute district.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how Enfield does all of theirs, right? It's,
Yeah. They all follow that same from the early 1900s, which is why the town can't just dissolve it. To your point, it was done in the 1900s by a
Special act.
special act.
Yeah, the legislature can do it.
No, we actually changed to the 105 district, recent, couple of years ago. And, that actually, we redid our whole charter and we have to, people who are interested in being a commissioner have to submit a letter of intent and it has to be a month before the meeting so they know who the candidates are. And it's not always bad to have somebody that's not directly involved with the fire department on the board of commissioners because the job of the board of commissioners is actually to watch out for the district taxpayers. So it actually works out really well.
All right, where's the table?
needs more work.
Which means I'm gonna put this away for a while, because the issue was trying to solve the issue for this year, and that, it's tonight or
Too tight
bust
of
for
a
that,
timeline.
yeah. Ladies,
I think it's too rushed to try to come up with all this. I don't like it in the form it is. So if it is,
well, the format is the language.
no, I mean, the way that these changes have been made is what I'm saying. I don't support them. So and we don't have enough time to work it out. And I just think it feels very like rushed to come before us tonight and not be able to solve the issues. So I don't, if it were to go to a vote, I would vote no. So
Marie?
I would have liked to have seen it resolved for that one issue. We don't have the votes, so there's no sense in rushing it if we don't have the votes. So,
Okay, In a drawer it goes.
and the drawer goes. But I would like, you to reach out to Broadbrook and get what was supposed to have been done a couple of years ago. So that
Yeah, we had
can-
a software, as you guys know, an email conversion, so I can't search
Yeah.
my old stuff.
Okay. But they don't have the same conversion, so they can forward it.
Right.
You can have a copy if he has it. And you can go from there. And
All
then
right.
maybe next time we go to the commission and not the chiefs, they can come. Many people.
All right, so moving on, we need to discuss and reappoint school facilities ad hoc committee members. You'll recall that at our last meeting, we established this commission or committee, I think, Paul, you'll correct me on. What we had been doing is Sarah and I had been working with the Board of Ed's facility subcommittee on the development of the school renovation plan. My intention, as I said at the last meeting, was to keep things moving right along just under a new vehicle. That is still what the intention is. So I would ask that the board reappoint Sarah and I now as members of the school facilities ad hoc committee.
I'll make
would
that
make-
motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. All right. It is the happiest time of year, budget time. And I know people are going to think I'm speaking glibly. I freaking love budget season. It is awesome. So I have updated the budget calendar that we typically use. There are a couple of blanks that need to be filled in. First of all, look at the dates that have been laid out there. They follow what we have used, just adjusted for the date. The days fall the same as they always have. And then the green box, we need to fill in with what our workshop schedule is going to be. So first of all, with any of the dates that are laid out, does anybody have any issues with those dates?
I would not be able to make February 12th for the public hearing.
Probably earlier in the week is.
That week is Valentine's Day week, so I will not be available that whole week. I mean, earlier in the week, the 10th, if it has to be that week, the 10th would be better because the closer I get, the longer hours I work that week.
The following week would be good for you, right?
It would, yes.
We could push that. There's no reason why we couldn't push that. All that would do is mean that we'd have 3 weeks instead of 4 to do our workshops, but I think that's still ample time.
Mhm.
So what if we were to, what if we were to look at, there's holidays in there.
And the 17th, I think, is a holiday, President's Day, I think.
President's Day is the 17th. How about the 9th? Well, Board of Finances, what if we were to do 6 o'clock on the 19th of February? Does that work?
Works for me.
It's only 1 hour though, right? Or
Yeah, between Patrick and I, it'll be an hour. And then actually,
is that enough time?
well, if we select the day, I'll work with Amy to verify whether or not we want to run the meetings concurrently with the Board of Finance to see, so they can see where things are at the start. Or if we want to start prior to them.
Is that a Board of Finance meeting date?
Yeah. February 19th is Board of Finance. So I would probably schedule the public hearing for either 6 or 7, depending on what Amy thinks would work for the BOF.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to do that on 2/19. All right, after that, we can start doing our workshops, but we need to be done really by March 12th. BOS BOE presents budget to BOF. Yeah, I'm going to say we need to be done by March 12th. So you're looking at the week of the 24th and the week of the 3rd for dates.
What's wrong with the 20th? Number one, that 20?
Absolutely nothing, and that's one of our regular meeting dates. So that's a great suggestion. So we'll go 220.
19 and 20.
I'm on that string, dude.
Yeah, you said it's.
224. So I can do the 24th, the 26th, the 27th. I can't do the 25th. You guys want to take all three of those?
I'll do my best to be at all of them, but there's never any guarantees with my life.
Okay, so, after the 24th, I'm sorry, what, did you say the 26th? I'm sorry.
I have 220, 224, 226, 227.
Thank you.
And then I'm gonna suggest March 6th, which is also a selectmen's meeting night, as our last one.
Okay.
In March 6th.
Yeah, so we've got the 20th, 24th, 26th, 27th, and 6th. Melissa, is 4 workshops and a voting night enough time to get everybody scheduled, or do you need a 5th? So let's go with, let's go with the March 5th. All right, so I've got February 20th, 24th, 26th, 27th, March 5th, and 6th. Those dates are good with everybody?
Yes.
Then can I have a motion to accept the budget calendar as amended?
Moved.
Or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, done. Tax refunds.
Move to approve the tax refunds totaling $3,046.11.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Selectmen's reports. I just want to say, while we're talking about the Broadway Fire Department, the torchlight parade on the 20th was fantastic. Thanks to Jay Purick, who let my kids ride on and one of the engines. They had a great time and threw most of the candy right into the tire well. Missed the window entirely. But they had a great time. Despite it was cold. Despite the cold, it was well attended and a lot of fun, and appreciate the hospitality. And then yesterday, the American Heritage River Commission had their, I think, 15th annual New Year's Day hike with somewhere between 150 and 200 people there, which was drier than usual, and it was a great day to be out and celebrating. Otherwise, it's been all holidays for the last 2 weeks, so that's the end of my report. Marie.
I don't have any report to offer. I think the only thing Jason missed, we had 2 police officers, that are
yes.
celebrating 30 years, of service to the town. Officer Sergeant Chant and, Lieutenant Eloquin. And they had a little, gathering today, to honor them. So, I just publicly want to say thank you to them for their 30 years of service to the town. Hope we can get a few more out of them.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I absolutely meant to include that. Al,
No reports.
Sarah.
Nothing to report.
Steve.
I'm good tonight.
All right, public participation. This is the second opportunity for members of the public to address the Board of Selectmen. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? If so, please state your name, your address, and then turn to anybody who's online. Yes, sir. Doing the hat.
Solid Farm Road. I just want to thank First Selectman Jason Bowes. I know there's a lot of work that you did put into that, and I know things sometimes get messy with governance, and I appreciate the work that you went into solving that problem. And I do agree that there's problems with the ordinance. I welcome the opportunity with the commission to work with this Board of Selectmen to resolve all the issues that are involved in that ordinance.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Other public comment? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Tom Buckley, Kings Court,
I heard
Rockford.
that, Jim.
Just one thing, I just wish everybody here a happy new year.
You too, Tom.
Our year works out well for us.
Same to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there other public comment? Okay, we will have an executive session. It will involve just the members of the Board of Selectmen.
I'm going to recuse on the FOIA issue.
Okay,
I'll move that we go into executive session.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Action. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah. We're in executive session at 8:06 PM. It is 8:31. We're out of executive session with no further business to come before the board. A motion to adjourn would be in order. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adjourn at 8:31 PM.
Is there a
Second.
motion was made by Sarah, seconded by Alan to adjourn at 8:31. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 8:31.